Good morning and welcome to our live stream worship at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Atlanta. My name is Barbara Begner and I am so grateful that you are joining us this morning. We hope you will take part fully in this service. Find a place to be present. Sing along with the hymns. Light your chalice at home. Do the movement prayer. Close your eyes during meditation and be fully here with us. Our hymns and special music this morning will be led by our own Quartet, UUCA, accompanied by Amy Odell. And our first hymn is The Spirit of Life.
Good morning. Welcome to Sunday morning worship with the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Atlanta, a beloved community that changes lives. My name is Kay Golan, and I am a lay minister and longtime member here at UUCA. Wherever you are from, whomever you love, whatever path you are on, you are welcome here. Today's beautiful flowers are a gift to our beloved congregation from former lay minister Patricia Emerson on the occasion of her 87th birthday. Happy birthday, Patricia. If you are a visitor or new to UUCA, we hope that you will attend our Inquirers class shortly after service at 12:30 on Zoom. The link to sign up for Inquirers is going into the live chat right now. We cannot believe it is already time for our annual animal blessing. Join us next Sunday for a shortened online service honoring our unexpected saviors, our beloved animal family members. Then come to the Treehouse at 1190 West Druid Hills Drive Northeast at noon for an outdoor event to bless the animals. In the interest of upholding our UU values and centering the most vulnerable, we strongly encourage all eligible participants to be vaccinated. Through the live chat, we can express love and care for each other. Take a moment to say hello to each other, and please welcome anyone who may be visiting in this morning's worship service. Once again, we are so glad that you have chosen to worship with us this morning. And now Bruce Gaunt, another lay minister, will light our chalice. And please say the chalice lighting words with me. May the light of this flame illuminate our tradition of seeking, invite all who yearn for acceptance, and ignite our passion for justice and peace.
Some mystery becomes the proud, but to be wholly taciturn in your reserve is not allowed. Say something to us we can learn by heart, and when alone repeat. Say something, and it says I burn, but say with what degree of heat. Talk Fahrenheit, talk centigrade, use language we can comprehend. Tell us what elements you had. It gives us strangely little aid, but does tell something in the end. Steadfast as Keats eremite, not stooping from its sphere. It asks a little of us here. It asks of us a certain height. So when at times the mob is swayed to carry praise or blame too far, we may choose something like a star to stay our mind.
Liebs Lieberman and Mark Honeycutt in our movement prayer.
First, we bow to honor the Spirit of life. We lift our arms and embrace the gifts of Spirit. We bring these gifts unto ourselves with gratitude and breathe and smile. We share these gifts with the world. We remember to be present. Honor, embrace, gratitude, share, be present.
Let us put hands on hearts. Feel the warm connection. Let love in this moment flow. Say to yourself silently, I will love myself. I will love others. And that love will heal the world. At this time, we hear the joys and sorrows of our community. Please send love and healing thoughts to Tricia and Larry Schultz's daughter, Corey Kahn. Corey underwent surgery on Friday. The doctor said it went well, and Corey will be home soon for recovery. May all beings find connection. May all people find comfort. May all of us find ways to be more loving to one another. You are invited to say the names of people you are holding in your heart this morning. Speak their names into this holy space now, or type them in the chat. All humans have gathered for millennia, and so we gather this day to gently surrender to something beyond ourselves, to humbly acknowledge our mistakes, to ask forgiveness, to seek hope and renewal, to honor the earth that supports and sustains life, and to remember that all beings are all inextricably and mysteriously connected. Now we still our bodies and we still our minds. We take a big breath and we exhale. We relax into this space that our intentions make sacred. We enter into the wise silence.
To love and to all friends I will sing, I will sing. To love and to all friends I will sing. To love and to all friends who pain and sorrow mend, with thanks unto the end I will sing, I will sing. With thanks unto the end I will sing.
Good morning. I'm Laura Beth Brown, Director of Lifespan Religious Education, and you may be wondering why I have a tennis ball in my hand. Well, I just really like the way it bounces back to me. And it also makes me think about how we are all trying to bounce back right now. Can I get an amen? You know, another word for bounce back is resilient. Children, can you say that with me? Resilient. And there is a lot of really interesting information out there about being resilient and about how we can become more resilient. And guess what? That information came from some doctors right in our very own backyard at Emory University. Turns out, one of the most important and effective ways to become resilient is to know the stories of our families and understand that families face both joys and challenges. And when we know the stories of our families overcoming obstacles, then we feel more confident that we can too. So, those doctors at Emory University created 20 questions for us to ask our families. Questions like, do you know where your grandparents grew up? Do you know how your parents met? Do you know of an illness or something really terrible that happened in your family? Do you know the story of your own birth? For many of us, we are spending a lot more time with our families right now, both in person and virtually. So it might be a really good time to start asking those questions if you haven't already. If you want to know more about those doctors, or get the full list of 20 questions, that HuffPost article link is being put into the chat right now. Now there's a catch. And this is really important, especially for you kids and your parents. It is not enough for us to just know the stories of our families. It is how we hear and really come to know those stories that's important in building resilience. In order for families to hear stories, they need to all sit down with each other and not be distracted. And those stories, they need to be told over and over. And the times that families come to sit down together need to be multiple and happen over many years. So, for instance, when my great Uncle Bob at every Thanksgiving dinner would tell us the story of how he and his family escaped with their lives from their little West Texas town when Bonnie and Clyde came through. Oh, kids, Bonnie and Clyde were bank robbers, and they were very scary and very dangerous. So when my Uncle Bob would tell me the story how his family escaped and they hid out for several months and then came back to try to rebuild their lives, little did I know, and probably little did he know, that he was teaching me resilience. Family dinners, vacations, long family car rides, birthdays, or even just a regular snack time after school, short or long, these gatherings where multi-generational stories can be told and learned are at the heart of building resilience. So take this time now, while you have the time, and start sharing those stories. We can help our children and our families be more resilient and bounce back.
As we prepared for this lay minister service on emergence, we ask ourselves, how are we emerging, and do we want to emerge from this year, this 18 months and more of pandemic, isolation, fear, loss, and challenge? As I prepared this call to offering, I asked myself another question. What has sustained, anchored, and nurtured me, my family, and many friends as we had to withdraw physically from the world, the communities and the environments that we had moved so freely in before? When people ask what gets me through, the resounding answer for me, and I'm sure for many of you, is our UUCA community. UUCA has been a spiritual anchor for me and my family for over 30 years, helping us grow and learn, parent, provide opportunities to serve, but it has never been more important than this last year and a half. Every Sunday morning at 11, UUCA has provided Patrick and me a place to go to participate, albeit on YouTube, in a very professional service, lovingly prepared and led by Reverend Taryn, Dawn, Tony, Laura Beth, Bryce, other staff, the AV team, and lay leaders. Just knowing that hundreds of other UUs and visitors across Atlanta, the U.S., and even the world were connected to worship brought much needed feelings of connection, love, and safety. We participated in many other UUCA opportunities to learn and grow, to connect and serve, including the weekly Zoom social hour after the service, weekly adult RE classes, usually on Tuesday night over Zoom, serving on committees over Zoom, participating in visioning and healthy relationships workshops, participating in town halls to learn and have input, participating in my women's aging and spirituality group and our covenant group, participating in drive-through and drive-up events, and even some online singing, serving as a lay minister over phone and Zoom, but most of all, just knowing that you are there. So I emerge today more grateful for UUCA, for this community, for you than ever before. Patrick and I have pledged for over 30 years and in 2 capital campaigns, but have never felt more gratitude than we do today as we give. I hope that you have found or will find UUCA an anchor and sustaining force in your life. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Though days be dark with storms, and burdens weigh my heart, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. My sorrow heals my soul, and burdens make me strong. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. My sister in my heart, my brother in my song, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. The destination is near. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. So brothers, take my hand, and sisters, sing my song. When hope awaits at every turn, when hope awaits at every turn, when hope awaits at every turn, I know we will go on.
Thank you to the UUCA Quartet and to Terry Carpenter for that arrangement of I Know I Can. And now please join me in the dedication of the offering. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action we call community, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings.
For me, the overarching, most profound learning I ever got from complexity science was about emergence, and that's what we're living with right now. So nature, life changes through emergent processes. We humans have thought the change happens incrementally, bit by bit. Set a goal, define a measurement, do the work, see how you're doing, maybe readjust what you're doing, but I found instead we just kept doing what we were doing. Very non-adaptive behavior. But what happens in living systems with how change happens is you have all these individual components that could be species, plants and animals in an environment. And they are all interacting because they don't know anything different, and they're adapting as they go to changing conditions, changes in predators, changes in rainfall. And this process of adapting as you go is what we humans have completely lost any sense about.
Emergence. It's a word that implies change, an unfolding, birth, dawn, evolution, not in the quick sense as zap or crack or boom, And forgive the I Dream of Jeannie reference, but arms folded, nod headed, and something transforms instantly. Emergence is a process. Say it slowly. Emergence. It is not immediate or linear. It takes time to show its inner workings and external outcomes. I reflect on my personal emergences from grief, divorce, or this present time of COVID. These seemingly negative life events have helped me grow and sculpted me into a new being. One cannot experience loss and emerge as the same person. As Eckhart Tolle states, some changes look negative on the surface, but you will soon realize that space is being creative in your life for something new to emerge. That has been my experience, but it takes time for the growth, adaptation, and healing processes to occur. As we are entering this new phase of COVID or grief or a divorce, it seems natural to put a timeline on when things will be normal again, when the pain will stop, when living without a partner will be okay. We think that once the masks are removed, if ever, all will be well in the world, and it will look and feel just the same as before. We will be ready to socialize, to be out in the world again. We set goals, as referred to by Margaret Wheatley, which can be unrealistic or rigid, not allowing us time to adapt, keeping us stuck in the same patterns, unable to move forward. I've spoken to so many folks who thought their re-entry into the new COVID world would look and feel much as it had in March of 2020. Visions of coming out joyfully and socially ready to resume the same familiar ways with no change in outlook. What I hear in my personal experience is anything but that. How can it be? It is impossible to be the same person today as we were yesterday. Experience changes us. Some of us have lost loved ones, have lost jobs. Most of us lost social connections. Some of us discovered new things about ourselves, our families, our neighbors, and redefined our priorities. But not one of us is the same as we were pre-COVID. While experiencing the grief of losing a loved one, the goal set may be, it's been X amount of time since my loved one died, and I should be in a better place emotionally. I shouldn't still be feeling this profound grief. We set timelines, expectations of what the future should look like, how we should feel. And when those expectations are not met, there can be self-criticism, frustration, confusion, depression. The story of the metamorphosis of the caterpillar into the butterfly has long been used as a metaphor for transcending into a new state of being or consciousness. The caterpillar and the butterfly, while emerging or originating from the same egg, once having gone through this metamorphosis, has very different needs. What they eat, how they move, the environment that they surround themselves in have changed drastically. As we move through different life experiences, COVID being a current one, our needs have most likely shifted. What seemed important before may seem trivial now, or vice versa. Life is seen through a different lens. If you have ever watched a butterfly try to wriggle out of its chrysalis, you've seen the struggle. It doesn't crack open in one fell swoop, and not without effort on the butterfly's part. The emergence is slow. The butterfly pushes against the side of the chrysalis until it eventually breaks through. If the process is interfered with or pushed too quickly, the butterfly may not survive. The transformation is not passive, as our emergence from life's trials are not passive. The process is not always one we willingly embrace. Pema Chodron says, although we have the potential to experience the freedom of the butterfly, we mysteriously prefer the small and fearful cocoon of the ego. Moving into uncharted territory can be frightening, but listen to what Richard Bach says. What the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly. So much has to do with perspective and embracing a new normal rather than shying away from it. Once the butterfly emerges, it doesn't immediately take flight. It takes time to spread its wings, to adjust to its new life until it gracefully takes off on its inaugural flight. As with us emerging from COVID or grief or divorce, the process shouldn't be rushed. We need to allow time for the emergent process to happen, letting our wings slowly spread, adapting to the new world before we take flight. My personal experiences of grief and divorce have shown me the need for adaptation. After my divorce, I went to a support group. We had a workbook, and on the cover was a butterfly. I remember distinctly coloring that butterfly with vivid colors, imagining myself emerging just as powerful and beautiful with my new life taking off in graceful flight. I set a timeline for the healing and immediately set out to accomplish the task of becoming the butterfly. But things didn't unfold that way, and as I had anticipated. I experienced times of sadness and loneliness. I had to sit in my chrysalis for a while, allowing personal growth to occur without the strict boundaries and expectations that I had set. I eventually emerged as a transformed individual, but the transformation did not occur in my neatly structured lines. Periods of adaptation and readjustment were necessary along the way in order for me to move through this process. Grief is another human experience that can't be rushed. My sister Jane passed away from cancer at the age of 32, leaving behind a 4-year-old son. The depth of grief I felt was indescribable. I unknowingly had set arbitrary timeline as to when my grief would end. It took much longer than the goal I had set. I was critical of myself, frustrated and baffled. I wasn't allowing the grief to unfold as it needed to for me at that time. As you go through life and its changes, be gentle with yourself. Recognize that any transformation takes time, the journey isn't linear, and it is very personal. Hold yourself lovingly as you emerge as gradually and gracefully as the butterfly breaking out of its chrysalis. I will end with a poem titled Grace by George Yorgos Stathakis. In a state of confusion, little patience, without clarity, empty of tranquility, there I was, but there I did not seek to be, the guided path lost within my world. I was perplexed, bewildered, defeated. I needed amity of body, mind, and spirit. I needed the breath of life to infuse wholeness into my existence. But that I felt helpless to achieve. So I sat alone, in silence. I waited, consumed by my condition, unable to call upon decipherability as to understand the complexity of my despair and find solutions for my state. I surrendered to the abyss of the unknown. And then I felt it. The emergence of the unexplained, slowly, gently, mysteriously, taking hold of my being. For grace had now made her appearance and soothed my sheared and shattered soul. May you find the grace and strength to spread your wings and experience the freedom of the butterfly.
Good morning, I'm David Hanna. So please indulge a fantasy fiction fan's musings on a serious topic, emergence from the pandemic, through the lens of none other than J.R.R. Tolkien. I promise you a very light touch with no obscure or obtuse character references. Well, maybe not very many at least. In Tolkien's epic fantasy, long ago, 19 special rings were forged which gave the person wearing them amazing powers. But there was one additional all-powerful ring which rules over all the others. It has been lost for ages until discovered by a peaceful race of beings called hobbits. This one ring is so powerful that it must be destroyed. And in Tolkien's fantasy trilogy, an intrepid team made up mostly of hobbits sets off to take the ring to the one place where it can be destroyed forever. Now, the video you just saw depicts many of the characters of the Tolkien trilogy rejoicing at the survival and emergence from coma of Frodo the Hobbit. Now, hobbits are more fond of celebrations and comfort than they are of adventure. But the adventure they do embark upon, one filled with one crisis after another, is no small undertaking. Yet they all become heroes on this epic journey across the land Tolkien calls Middle-earth. Okay, so here's the thing. When I first asked myself, as I think all of us have done, what will the post-pandemic world look like once we all emerge from our crisis? It occurred to me that, in fact, the post-pandemic world was here now, and that we weren't actually emerging as much as we've already emerged into that world. But we just really couldn't accept the reality of that. And as an enthusiast of fantasy fiction's alternate worlds, I couldn't help but draw parallels to the experience of the characters and people of Tolkien's Middle-earth. So the parallels go like this. Once the war in Tolkien's Middle-earth was over and the Ring of Power was destroyed, it was the beginning of a new age. But not all Middle-earthers experienced this new age in the same way. There were those little touched by the war, the ring, and the new age was simply life back to normal. But then there were also those who emerged into a truly new world with new possibilities. And lastly, there was a third group that saw, felt, and experienced profound loss as they emerged into the new age. Think about your own 2020 up until now. My guess is that most of us experienced some or all of these realities in our own lives since the beginning of 2020. Now let's look at that first group of Middle-earthers, those that they saw no big battles, they were mainly on the periphery of things. Their experience was mainly an interruption in the availability of resources, fewer visitors, less commerce, seeing more strange things happen. But once the War of the Ring ended, resources once again became available. Visitors and commerce resumed, and things generally went back to normal. In the theatrical version of Lord of the Rings, the hobbits of the Shire were mostly spared from the effects and consequences of the war. It was for them, your everyday run-of-the-mill hobbit, that our heroes, Frodo and his companions, sought to protect a world a world and a way of life that they so valued, to preserve it so that regular folks could resume their normal world and their peaceful lives. Like Frodo and his companions, we know well the heroes in our own world and our own lives that gave so much to ensure that so many more did not experience hardship. Of course, this includes all frontline healthcare workers, but also anyone whose small act affected someone in the pandemic. Neighbor helping neighbor, friend helping friend, stranger helping stranger. Where the efforts of these heroes were successful, it would seem a wonderful thing that these actions had their intended effect of sheltering people from harm, from hardship, from distress, and allowing, to the extent that it was possible, the continuance of their peaceful lives. Okay, now back to Middle-earth in our second group, the one that was more touched by the events of the War of the Ring. For this group, it wasn't a return to status quo. It was a world of something different, a very changed world. Frodo's traveling companion Sam was certainly in this group. It was precisely Sam's experience in the War of the Ring that gave him the courage to ask for the hand in marriage of his beloved Rosie, and gave him the leadership skills to eventually become mayor of his village. For Sam, who was previously a shy and bashful hobbit, possibilities became available to him that were not there before the war. He was a changed hobbit, changed by the war. Like Sam, many people during our pandemic had new circumstances they had to deal with and new realities to live by. Most found themselves in a new world that, like Sam, they had not necessarily been prepared for, but they had to adapt to. A new world of new possibilities, certainly something many of us experienced in the last 18 months and may be still experiencing. For those of you who were forced to work from home or couldn't travel, what possibilities opened to you? What connections did you strengthen now that you were more homebound? What possibilities opened for you now that you had to slow down? What projects finally got started, finally got finished? What Band-Aid did you finally tear off that allowed you to fly free, or for once allowed you to see the wound for what it truly was? These are all realms of possibilities that, for good or ill, became available to us. Okay, now we come lastly to our third group of Tolkien's Middle-earthers that emerged from the War of the Ring. This is a group that did experience loss, usually a profound loss. While it is somewhat implicit that the world was made better by the destruction of the Ring of Power in Tolkien's world, much that was cherished and loved was lost. In Tolkien's mythology, the elves embodied a semi-divine perfection, a connection and a symbiosis with the world and all living creatures in it. And their purpose was to prepare the world for human beings. The destruction of the ring meant that their work was complete, and they departed from this world. This is shown in the life of one of the most celebrated elves of Middle-earth, Galadriel. Galadriel had dedicated most of her long life to preserving what was good and green in the world, but it was now time for her to depart Middle-earth. Without elves like Galadriel present, it was going to be a changed world, one with less magic, less enchantment. For those friends and loved ones lost in our own world during the pandemic, we've similarly had to face a world with less magic and less enchantment. Yet at the same time, we've sought ways to celebrate and honor the gifts that they brought and left to this world and to our lives. We've also been forced to reconcile with the loss of physical human interaction that we naturally all took for granted and take for granted. Celebratory social gatherings, hugs and kisses upon greeting, crowded bars and restaurants on a Friday night, wall-to-wall attendance at weddings and funerals. Things not gone forever, I'm happy to say, but things we lost for too long. Most people I've spoken with since the beginning of the pandemic have experienced each of these in some measure. Parts of our lives resemble that of everyday hobbits and return to status quo. Parts of our lives open to new possibilities, like Sam's. And parts of our lives saw irretrievable loss, like Galadriel's. Let us give gratitude for those who gave their time, their energy, and dedication to preserve the world as it is, to maintain as much of the status quo as possible, and to deflect as much hardship as possible. And let us offer hope to those whose worlds open to new possibilities and wish that those new possibilities created worlds of more promise for them. Finally, let us offer strength and compassion for those who experience loss, and faith that they might find ways of honoring and expressing gratitude for the lives of those that they lost. As we all emerge, let us keep in mind what is one of my favorite quotes from Tolkien. It is not the end, it is the beginning. You cannot falter now.
Thank you all for joining us this morning, and a special thank you to our lovely musicians, the sound team, my fellow lay ministers. And our final hymn this morning is This Little Light of Mine.
I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine, 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 let it shine.
Our closing words are from The Hill We Climb, written by Amanda Gorman, the young African-American poet who inspired a nation at the Biden presidential inauguration. Here are Ms. Gorman's words. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and dutiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. One day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. As we extinguish our chalice, may each of us emerge into the light, and in so doing, may we become a beacon to others. Go in peace.